But today, let's continue this series that we're on that we've called The Real You. And as we get started today, let me ask you this question. Just think about your life for a second. How many times or how often do you describe your life as stressful? Every day. I'm glad you're here, Julie. It's going to be a good day for you. Or how often do you describe your week as so busy? Or overwhelming? Or I'm just overloaded? Or I'm on the verge of burnout? We do that quite often. We answer that question quite often. And the truth is we live in a 24/7 world, don't we? That's changed pretty quickly, even from a couple decades ago. And it's a blessing in some ways, but it can also be a curse because we can do so much more, and so usually because of that, we do too much. With technology, we should be able to be so much more efficient and do more in less time, but usually what we do is more than ever before because we have more time to do more than ever before. We have so much available at our fingertips, we never take a second to stop. Nice stash, Kenneth. Or to breathe. He's working his stash today. He's testing it out. I like it. Okay. Oh, that's in the mental scrapbook forever now, because I have to look at that for a few minutes here. No, it's good. So this 24/7 world could be a blessing, but many times it's a curse. And the result of that in our world at large is that we have a lot of really soul-sick people. This series, The Real You, we're talking about the soul. And in week 1, we kind of tried to define what the soul is, why it's important. Week 2, we looked at why do we want our soul to be healthy? What does that mean? And then last week, this week, and next week, we're looking at how does my soul become healthy? If I sense certain things and certain signs that things are out of whack, things are off center, my life's out of control, and there's maybe a soul issue deep down inside of me, who I really am, there's something off kilter, how do I correct course and make my soul healthier? Because again, with the 24/7 world, you think that productivity would make us feel good, but many times we feel exhausted. And you would think that our accomplishments that we achieve would make us feel accomplished, and yet many times we still feel empty. You would think that, again, with the efficiency that we have the ability to have, that we would do more in less time, but we wear ourselves out beyond what we should, and we get soul sick. So the question that we're going to ask today is, what's the cure? What's the cure for this soul sickness? What's the answer to this problem that really is deep down inside some of us, maybe all of us at times if we're not careful? The answer is found both in the Old and New Testament, and that's what we're going to jump off at today, is by looking at how we can what's the answer to this soul sickness. Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30, Jesus is speaking here. He says this, "Then Jesus said, 'Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you' what? Rest. 'Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find' what? For your what? Rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light.'" And then Psalm 23, verses 1 through 3, very famous passage. It says this, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters, and he restores my soul." So the cure for the soul sickness of busyness is rest. The soul needs rest. Your soul needs rest. That's what we're going to talk about today. We always will look at our lives or our situations or the season that we're in and say, well, eventually things will slow down. Really soon things will normalize. Okay, so maybe you're looking at, okay, now that the summer's here, life is way easier for me. Now, I've been doing all this stuff in the spring. It's been so busy, and I got so much. Now the summer, I can chill out and relax. Max it all cool, shooting some b-ball outside of school, right? We can do that. But a couple of guys, no, I'm going to stop right there. Okay. Sometimes we say, summertime, I'll slow down. I'll take it easy. We're going to vacation. It's going to be great. Maybe for some of us, we look at, well, once the summer's over and we get, the kids get back into school and things start to normalize, then I can breathe. Or maybe we'll say, well, the fall means I'm gearing up for, for all these holiday things at the end of the year, and I'm already stressed about that, and it's only the middle of August, and oh my goodness, and I'm stressed, and all these plans and travel things, and I got to buy stuff for Christmas and think about it. So then we think, well, when the first of the year starts, I'll make a resolution to slow down. I'll force myself to slow down. I'm going to mark it, I'm doing this goal, I'm going to make it happen. But somehow by the middle of February, we're back to normal, right? And then sometimes we'll say, well, I'm in this huge project at work, and once it's over, then I can breathe again. But then what happens is you start a project at home, and it takes up more hours than the project at work took up. So what we see is we always say things will slow down. Eventually I'll slow down. Eventually I'll have rest. Eventually it will normalize. But what happens is all these things pile one on top of the other, or they follow one after the other. And so we have intentions to slow down, but rarely do we find or make the opportunity to slow down. But our soul needs rest. Your soul needs rest. It's good for you now and for the future. It's good for you and for those around you. It has huge benefits. And what's interesting is Jesus, in his life, he had a pretty packed schedule. Not sure if you ever read any of the Gospels about his life. He's just constantly going back and forth, doing this, doing that, helping this person, helping that person, teaching this and he's going on and on and on. His motor is running, and he can easily be stressed out. He has so many demands on him all the time, so many expectations from everyone around him all the time, and rarely does he meet those in their eyes, right? So he's a huge disappointment to a lot of people most of the time. That can become overwhelming. And yet, so what happens is when we get overwhelmed and we don't see the need for rest, we have signs that come out from that. And how do we know that we're not rested enough is because usually we'll be short with people. We'll become cynical by nature. We'll become bitter at our situation. Well, I never get to slow down. I never get a chance to take a break. And look at them, they're lazy bones over there, and they go on 3 vacations a year. And we get bitter at our own situation because we haven't seen the value of rest for ourselves. We become discouraged. We eventually hit a wall or fall off a cliff. So Jesus, who had every reason to be stressed out all the time, never exhibited really any of those at all. He wasn't short with his, 12 inner circle. He was when he needed to be to correct them, but not because he was having a grumpy day, because he valued rest. Even Jesus valued rest. So the question is, how did he do that? And then the real question is, how do I do that? How do we do that? How do you do that? How do we follow the method of Jesus to find rest for our souls so we don't hit that wall, so we can live a fulfilling life, not just a busy life? So what we're going to look at today is what I'm calling the rhythm of the soul. As we look at the example in the life of Jesus, we're going to see he had a certain rhythm that he worked in, he lived in, and he modeled, that if we follow, we can be very productive and yet fulfilled in that production. We can be busy, but in a healthy sort of way, not being overrun or overburdened or super stressed out, ready to hit that wall or fall off that cliff. We can do all these things and meet all these needs that we need to, like Jesus did, and still find a way to live in a rhythm so we can find rest for our souls. So there's really 4 steps or movements or beats to this rhythm, if you will, and we're going to look at them today. The first beat of this rhythm of the soul is acceptance. Acceptance. See, Jesus, he faced a lot of stress, but he also faced a lot of rejection in his life. Again, to a lot of people looking from the outside looking in, he didn't meet their expectations, especially the religious people. He disappointed them consistently, so much so that they killed him for it. That's how mad they were at this guy for not meeting their expectation. And so, but he handled it really well. You don't really see him, flying off the handle at people all the time because they talk bad about him. Usually he ignores them or he puts them in their place very quietly, very simply, and yet they have no response when he's done with them. So how did he do that? It's because he knew where acceptance truly came from for him. So we go to right before Jesus begins his public earthly ministry, he is baptized in water by his cousin John, right? And so it says as he came out of the water, the Holy Spirit descended in the form of a dove, and God the Father spoke in an audible voice, and he said, "This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased. So Jesus had this acceptance from God from the beginning just because he was his son. Because what happens after this is then Jesus begins his ministry. So here's what Jesus did that we need to learn to do. He didn't do what he did to earn acceptance. So it's not like he's like, I got to do this ministry thing to make my dad happy because I know it's what he wants me to do. And if I don't do it, he's going to be angry. No, he received God's acceptance before he did anything. And then out of that acceptance that he knew he had flowed what he did. See, many times what we do a lot of what we do to earn acceptance from someone. So what we'll do sometimes is we'll live a lifestyle we really can't afford to impress people that are also broke, right? We'll do it. I have to have this status so they think I'm important. We don't always do that, and sometimes we can live a certain lifestyle that we want, or we are content with where we are, and that's great, that's healthy, that's positive, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people put themselves through the ringer. They put themselves in crazy debt. They have to work 80, 100-hour weeks just to keep up so they can afford that payment on those things that make them feel or look important. Sometimes we'll take on extra project at work that doubles our hours just to get a pat on the back from the boss. It's not a really great payoff for all the trouble that you're going through voluntarily just so you can look good or so your coworkers can say, man, he really cares about his job. Probably what they're saying is, man, he doesn't care about anything but his job, and so that we have it backwards. But we do it for acceptance. Sometimes we'll run our schedule around our kids' activities nonstop and wear ourselves and our kids out because that's what they want to do. We want to please our kids. Oh, I want to do karate. Okay, cool. Oh, and ballet. Okay, and basketball. Oh, and football. Oh, and hockey. We don't even have a hockey team. I'm going to start one, Dad. Let me do it. Okay, son, that's cool. You can start your own LLC and it'll be great. So we do that. So many parents are running back and forth, to and fro, constantly, every day and night of the week, nonstop, stressing themselves out, stressing their kids out, thinking, I look like a great parent, don't I? Because my kids are involved in so much. And they're so popular on so many teams and activities, and I feel good for that. I feel fulfilled by running my kids to death. So we do that. It's acceptance. Many times what we do is in an effort to earn acceptance, but Jesus does the opposite. He is secure in who he is, and out of that security and acceptance from his Father, he then does what he does and can do what he does. He doesn't get stressed out. He doesn't get burned out. He doesn't quit halfway through. He doesn't, scream and holler and curse. And, oh, this life is so terrible. It's because we're overdoing it. We're not resting, but we're looking for acceptance in our busyness. Seeking acceptance is not rest. It is work. So we want to follow the consistent, secure, fulfilled example of Jesus to know that our acceptance in God is all that we need. And if we can live in that and work through that, we can make it. We can do that. This is for us. The second beat of the rhythm of the soul is sustenance. And it's quite possibly the most important step, yet the one that we neglect the most. Isn't that weird how that works out? The most important step is the one that we neglect the most, the first, the quickest, the easiest one. Sustenance for your soul is kind of like filling up before you go on a road trip. You pull into Quick Trip or wherever your convenience store of choice is. Love Quick Trip, all right? So you go in there, you're like, we got to go 500 miles today. You fill up the car with gas. You go get a lot of energy drinks, you get snacks for the kids. Hopefully non-sugary snacks, but that's all they have at Quick Trip, so forget that. You clean your windshield off. You're ready for the trip. You got your checklist. You're ready to go. Sustenance for the soul is this way, and Jesus shows us what that is. So for Jesus, he sustained himself through regular prayer. But again, in the busyness of life, that's one of the first things that we just neglect to do. And we wonder why we run on empty. He regularly was in Scripture. So even he knew the Scripture forward and backward. It was part of who he was. It sustained him on a regular basis. Regular worship for Jesus was part of his sustenance, which is really when you go to the Old Testament law. So rest for your soul is so important to God that he made it one of the top 10 rules, the Sabbath day. So now the Sabbath day is not, and I'll get to this in a second, it's not about a legalistic religious exercise. It is rest for your soul. It's setting aside regular time for rest and worship. So that for us is what this is. It's a time where, maybe you're going to you have to work today and that's fine. And culture is a little bit different. So again, it's not a religious thing that we have to get tied down to such a specific definition. It's the heart behind the law that really matters. Regular times of refreshing and rest and worship. It is part of sustenance for our soul. You also see Jesus regularly taking time away by himself to unwind and unplug. Because there's moments where he's like, okay, I'm about to snap here. I need to take a breather. So it says he'll go off to a quiet place and pray. He'll go off by himself. He'll take boat rides. He'll take long walks on the beach. So I don't know how he didn't get a wife, because he loved long walks on the beach. But somehow he didn't get that ad, in the local paper. But anyway, he was out in nature quite a bit. There are actual current studies that have been done to show the effects of your psyche on when you're out in nature. It does something to you to be out in God's creation and just breathe it in for a minute. The stop and smell the roses thing is real, right? It's legit. It's science, okay? And so that is something maybe we could follow in the path of Jesus. But many times we'll say, I don't have time for that rest thing. I don't have time for that sustenance thing. I can't take a break, and I have too many responsibilities, and my schedule's too packed, and if I stop for 5 seconds, the world will stop revolving. Can I say you don't have that much power in the universe, okay? You don't have that much power in your own family, right? You can take a break, and they will survive. You can take a nap, Mom, and your kids probably won't die, okay? And maybe it's a risk you need to take just to try it out, okay, once in a while. Lock him in a padded room. I'm taking a nap for 90 minutes, guys. Just stay in here and survive, I don't know, whatever it is. Naps are okay. I don't get enough of them. This is for me, okay? If there's ever a sermon that's for Stephen, it's this one, because I'm really not good at this rest thing. So I preached it myself for a long time, all week long. So I'll just let you know up front, be vulnerable with you this morning. This is for me as much as it is for anyone else. We say, I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to take time and do this, or I don't have time for a devotion in the morning or in the evening or whatever. And I would say this, we can't afford not to, okay? It's like when you're on a plane and the flight attendants are giving you the pre-flight instructions. One thing that's very interesting is that they tell you if your oxygen mask comes down and you're with a child, what do you do first? You put yours on first, and then you help your child that's with you. Sustenance for your soul is the oxygen mask. If you have not filled yourself up, you're no good to anyone else. It's like, I'm going to go on a 500-mile road trip, but I'm not going to fill up at Quick Trip first. I'm going to see how far these fumes will take me. And you'll get to the city limit, and you're stranded. Many times we live that way. We live for months, years on fumes. And we wonder why we're so stressed out. We wonder why we're chronically tired or chronically ill. We wonder why life seems so unbearable. It's because we're running on fumes. Step 2 is important to your soul, and it affects every other part of you. We talked about that the first week of this series. The soul is the glue that holds you together. It affects every part of you. So sustenance for your soul, refueling, refilling, recharging the batteries is essential for your soul. There's a story in a devotion that I read recently, and it's from about 100 years ago, and it was telling about a traveler from America that was going to Africa. They were doing some kind of expedition. And so the leader of the expedition is like, we're going to get from this point to that point as quick as possible. And so the first day, they go with this huge tribe of men that are leading them to where they're going to go, and they go a lot of miles in a short distance, and they stop to rest the first night. And the leader of the expedition, the American, is like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. We got so far. We're going to get there by the end of the day tomorrow. But then when they get up, they notice that the men are still asleep. The guides are still asleep, and they're kind of frustrated. They're like, what's the deal? Wake up. We got a long way to go. We got a lot to do. We got to get there. Go, go, go. And the leader of this tribe said, they're resting because they're waiting for their souls to catch up to their bodies. We went so far, so fast yesterday, they know they're not going to make it if they don't take a break. That's how your soul is. Sometimes you have to wait for your soul to catch up to your body. That's what sustenance does. It's that recharging that is essential for us. Again, let me give this one caution before we move on to the third step. And I've already mentioned or hinted at it, but let me get to it directly. Many times we make this step, because I've talked about prayer, Bible reading, and church attendance as main things for this. Again, sometimes we make rest work because we make it these obligations. I got to check the box all the time every day, and if I get 2 days behind on this Bible reading plan, I feel terrible, and that's work. Religion is work. Legalism is work. Now, should we desire to pray? Do we need to? Yes. Should we desire to be in the scriptures daily and do that? Yes. But if we make it work, it doesn't work. If we make it a chore, it doesn't bring joy. If we don't learn to grow in these areas, I'm not going to, do it from the very beginning. You might make a goal today, I'm going to read and pray for 2 hours a day. I would say, good luck with that. And I would say you might do it for a couple of days, but eventually it's going to become a chore. It's going to become work. It's going to become boring. It's going to become laborious, and you're going to quit really quickly. Grace is involved in this rhythm of the soul. So again, while we want to desire sustenance, we have to kind of work at it a little bit, but not make it to where it's so rigid that there's no wiggle room, and it becomes, I don't even want to do it at all. And then that's why we usually skip this step, because we make it so rigid, so defined, so legalistic, that it's not rest, it's work. So then the third step in the rhythm of the soul, the third beat, is what we would call significance. Significance. Now, this is not about seeking significance. It's about being significant by making a difference in the lives of others. Okay? Let me say it this way. Significance is not about performance or productivity, but is about presence. Many times we think I'm significant by what I do, but that's not the point. Again, the soul is not about what you do, it's about who you become, about who you are, about who you are trying to become to be. And so significance is about me, it's about presence. It's about me giving time and attention to those around me. I find true significance not by what I do, but by how I can serve others. That's the model of Jesus, because much of what Jesus did, he was inconvenienced all the time. All the time. People never came to him at the right time. It was always the wrong time. It was always a busy time. It was always inconvenient for him, and yet he understood significance equals presence. The time that I invest in this person will impact them forever. That's significant. The time that I give to this group of people, let me give you a couple of examples from Scripture. So there's a time where a man comes to Jesus and says, hey, my daughter is sick. She's going to die. Will you come to my house and heal her? And Jesus says, sure. So he's walking through town on his way to heal this really sick, nearly dead girl. But what happens? He's inconvenienced because this other woman comes to him with her problem. And she says, hey, I've had this issue for 12 years, and the doctors can't help me, and I've gone broke trying to figure out what's going on. Can you help me? Now, most of us would say, I'm sorry, I don't have time. I'm on my way to do this instead. It's inconvenient. But Jesus, what did he do? He stops in the middle of the crowd, in the middle of the street, takes the time to hear this woman's story and then heal her. And then he goes, and the story, the girl dies that he's on the way to heal, which you think would be a problem, but not for Jesus because he raises her from the dead. So he's always inconvenienced, but he always makes the time, which led to his significance. There was another time where Jesus has just rested, and a crowd will not stop following him. Huge crowd, thousands of people. And they say, Jesus, we're hungry. We're out in the desert, and we want food. And he's like, I really need to take a nap, guys. Can you just give me like 5 minutes? What does he do? He performs a miracle. He multiplies a Lunchable to feed 5, 10, 15,000 people on a hillside. So it wasn't a good time for him. I'm like, the office hours are over. The window is closed. Sorry, you leave a message at the beep. No, but he doesn't. He knows significance equals presence. If I can impact the lives of the people around me, that's where my significance comes from. Not my career, not my accomplishments, not my income, not my stuff, not my status, but my significance comes from serving other people. So there's a story in Mark 10 where James and John, they're followers of Jesus, they're disciples, and they're also brothers. So they tend to be, they like to fight with each other and argue, and they compete. So they're having this argument in Mark 10 about, who's kind of the greatest, and of course they're each saying they are, and the other one's saying, no, you're not, you're a loser, And so they're doing this kind of brother thing. And so they come to an agreement. They say, okay, Jesus, can one of us sit on your right hand in the kingdom and the other one sit on your left hand? See, they think significance is about position. Significance is about influence. It's about power. And Jesus says, no, that's not why we're here, guys. You've missed the point completely. And he says this, Mark 10:45. He talks about himself. He says, for even the Son of Man, that's Jesus, even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. So Jesus shows us through his example, significance is serving and giving to others. Not about the kingdom I can build for me, not about the wealth I can acquire for me, but the difference I can make in the lives of others. And what's funny is the disciples don't really get this very well, like usual. Because the very next thing that happens, I'm not even kidding, look it up, Mark 10. The very next thing after Jesus says this, it's about serving and giving, that's why I'm here. They're walking down the road, and a blind man named Bartimaeus cries out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And the disciples who have just been told it's all about serving and giving, what do? They shush the blind man on the side of the road. Don't bother us. Don't bother Jesus. He's too busy. He doesn't have time for this. And I can just imagine Jesus saying, literally 30 seconds ago, we had this talk, right? Serving and giving. We have an opportunity 30 seconds later to serve and give. And you're shushing him. What are you doing? Do you hear nothing that I tell you? And so Jesus, he just says, I got this, guys. Watch and learn. He goes, talks to the guy, literally 30-second conversation, 2 sentences back and forth. Basically, do you want to be healed? Yes, I do. I believe you can do it. You're healed. Done. 30 seconds, that's all it took. And what impact did that have on Bartimaeus? I'm blind. I talked to this guy for 30 seconds who's really busy. I know you got a crammed schedule. I know you got a lot going on. I know you're probably stressed out, and everybody's trying to clamor for interviews, and they need this and that. But 30 seconds impacted this man's life forever. That's significance. That's a big deal. So significance equals presence. It's about serving and giving. So we need to find significance ourselves by giving time and attention to others in our lives, by being fully present in our relationships. So it even starts here in this group. So for us First Century, us one seers here, it's about us taking time to learn one another's stories and our histories and our hopes and our fears and our dreams to get to, and that takes time. It's an intentional thing. And then doing that with our neighbors and our coworkers and those in our community, to learn about them, to invest in them, to be significant by making a significant difference in the lives of others, just like Jesus. One caution here with this, though, quickly, is that this can become draining. Serving and giving can be draining. It can be a lot, which is why it comes after step 2, sustenance. There's an order to this. It's important. If we skip step 2 and don't refuel, we have nothing to pour out. We will try to serve and give, and it'll be begrudgingly. We will try to serve and give. It'll be out of lack. We'll give the fumes that we have to somebody else, and then we'll complain about it when we're done, that they're so needy and they're just, ungrateful. It's like, no. If we filled up, then we can pour out. If we have sustenance, then we can find significance through serving and giving. The fourth step, the fourth beat to this rhythm of the soul is achievement. This is the rest. So we built it up to here. This is the rest component, because achievement, this is not about working toward achievement. This step is meant to imply we enjoy our achievement. Because again, the achievement has come through serving and giving. That's the real thing. So then, step 4 is after we've done that, after we find acceptance through our Father, and we find sustenance through Him, and then we serve and give through His power, through His Spirit, right? Then we can rest in what we've accomplished. And that's what the creation story is all about. God created for 6 days. He did a lot in those 6 days, right? Did a lot. I mean, everything that was made was made. That's a lot of work. And so what happens on the 7th day is God rested. Now, obviously, God doesn't need to rest. He doesn't have a battery that drains. He's eternal. He's omnipotent. He's all those things. So he doesn't need to rest. But again, what's he doing? It's not the rest that he needs. He's enjoying his achievement. He's taking a step back saying, pretty good. Hey, good job, me. There's nobody else here yet except for a couple of humans to do that, so I'll just do it myself. Good job, God. You're the man, It's enjoying your achievement. Achievement is a celebration of what's been accomplished, and that's the rest that we're finding. That's the goal that we're looking for. We sometimes get so laser focused on life, on doing this and doing that, and expectations and demands and our schedule and all these things that pile up, and we just get so into the weeds in life that we sometimes forget this step too. We don't understand what rest is. I don't even know how to spell rest. I'm so tired right now. It's like that kind of thing. So we have to learn that we need this part of the rhythm. It is important. It is essential. But let me show you a couple lists here. On the left, we have a list of that we just discussed. the 4 steps, the rhythm that leads to rest. On the right is how most of us live our lives most of the time. It involves 3 of the 4 steps, but they're out of order. And the 4th one has an asterisk because if we decide we're going to refuel, we will if we get around to it, maybe eventually if I don't die first. So what we've seen is a healthy rhythm that leads to rest. Acceptance comes from God. Sustenance comes from God. Significance comes through serving and giving to others, and then I can rest in my achievement that God has done through me. Typically, how we live life is I work to achieve so I can feel significant, so I can become accepted. That's the rhythm of our lives most of the time if we're not careful. Achievement's not enjoying what we've done. It's trying to earn more and more and more so I can feel significant and feel accepted. And we usually neglect the sustenance part altogether. So it's a 3-step process out of order. So we are constantly tired, stressed out, overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, cynical, bitter. I'm going to give up. I'm going to hit the wall, fall off the cliff. And then we repeat, rinse and repeat. And that's why there's millions and millions of people that are stressed out all the time, constantly. And that's why we always feel like I don't have enough and I can't be enough and God, you failed me and blah, blah. It's like, no, there's an order and there's a way that God designed it for us to do. And if we do it out of order, we're going to regret that for a long time. And the people around us will regret it as well. So the order is important. Every ingredient, every beat in order is important to seeing this rhythm of rest. And that's what Paul says in Romans 12 as we close today. Paul says this, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So we have 2 different lists here. Both of them can be very productive, but only one is fulfilling. Both of these lists can be work, but only one of them ends in rest. The order of the rhythm is important. Every step along the way is important. If I find acceptance from God, if I refuel and find sustenance from God and God alone, time in his presence, time with his people, as I find significance in serving and giving to others, then I can rest in that achievement that God has accomplished through me, by his Spirit, by his power, through his unlimited strength and supply. And that leads to one of the key things that our soul, that your soul needs, and that is rest.